So we'll start with how to manage our unhelpful and negative thoughts. So this week, everything on thoughts. So we are, in a way, upgrading our MindFulGym Kung Fu, we are focusing on thoughts, something which is more subtle in nature. Okay, let me start by asking you this question. Yeah, so very important question. So all of you can start to be mindful. I'm going to ask these questions. So the question is, are you now mindful, or is your mind full of rubbish and negative thoughts? I repeat the questions. Be mindful, listen to the questions. The question is, are you now mindful, or is your mind full of rubbish and negative thoughts? Are you mindful, or is the mind full of rubbish? Okay. If your answer is you are mindful, very good. Congratulations, you're mindful. That's very good. But if your mind is full of rubbish, it's also very good as well, because at least you're mindful that your mind is full of rubbish. So that's a good start. Not too bad. Yeah. So no worries if your mind is full of rubbish. Today we'll learn how to manage our negative, unhelpful, and rubbish thoughts. To be mindful of our rubbish mind. That's actually a good start. It's very important to have the wisdom and understanding that what we think affects how we feel. This is a very, very important statement. Let me repeat. It's important for us to understand and the wisdom to know that what we think affects how we feel. Very, very important statement. I suggest you try to remember this statement again and again. So mindfulness is remembering. Try to remember what we think affects how we feel. What we think affects how we feel. What we think affects how we feel. Yeah, can you remember? Yeah. Extending from this statement, what we think is more important than what happens to us, which is a situation in deciding how we feel. Very often in life, we think it is a situation. We think it's a trigger. It's something happened that make us feel bad, make us feel upset or frustrated. Actually, from a mindfulness point of view, it is not the situation that upsets us. It is not what happened that makes us sad. It's what we think over what happened that determine how we feel. Okay, let me give you an example to illustrate my point. Okay, in this example, imagine you're a student. Right? Imagine you are a student. Okay, as your lecturer walks into the class. So this is a lecturer. So you're a student sitting in the class. As a lecturer walks into the class, and you notice that your lecturer is not smiling. You got to visualize this situation. Yeah, the lecturer walks in with a sour face, not smiling. Okay, and in response to that, I mean the lecturer not smiling. Okay, suppose you think. Okay, let's say you think. Let's say you're a student A and you think, just like others, he doesn't like me. That means your lecturer doesn't like me. So you may think like this, like a student A, just like others, he doesn't like me. Okay, or you might be another student B, who thinks in a different way. Student B might think, what have I done wrong? Okay, that's one way of thinking. Okay, and then student C might think, maybe he's not feeling well. Okay, so you notice in this example, there are three students: student A, student B, and student C, and all three students think in slightly different way. Okay. Naturally, the student who thinks just like others, he doesn't like me, this student will very likely feel sad. Whereas for student B, the student B who thinks, what have I done wrong again? This student likely will feel anxious. And for the last student, student C, the student who thinks, maybe he's not feeling well, maybe a lecturer is not feeling well, it's nothing to do with me. And this student will likely feel kindful or compassionate. Yeah. So this is a very good example to illustrate to us that what we think is more important than what happens to us in deciding how we feel. It's not the actual situation. Okay, the actual situation is the lecturer who has a sour face, not smile. That is the actual situation. That doesn't determine how the students feel. What determines how the students feel is how the students think. Therefore, this statement, how we think affects how we feel. Okay, and since how we think has impact on how we feel, we need to be mindful of our thoughts, and we need to learn to how to relate to our thoughts mindfully. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper. Okay, earlier I mentioned that what we think affects how we feel. Not only that, our thoughts can also condition how our body feels and how we behave. Okay, for example, let's say you have the thoughts. Okay, imagine, let's say you have the thought, nobody likes me, or the thoughts of I always mess things up. Okay, if we have these thoughts, that will easily condition feelings of sadness, feelings of anxiety, and feelings of self-consciousness. Okay, and these feelings would easily conditions unpleasant body sensation like body tension, heart palpitation, tiredness, and no energy. And naturally, when our body in this state, that will condition our behavior. Very likely, we'll withdraw ourselves from others, we avoid meeting people, we stop doing things that we like. And with that behavior, will further reinforce the thoughts that nobody likes me. I always mess things up. Okay, so you can see in this example, actually it's very complex. It starts with thoughts conditions, feelings conditions our body sensation conditions our behavior reinforces the thought, and it goes round and round and round and round in the vicious cycle. Yeah, so our thoughts are very, very powerful, and we really need to be mindful of our thoughts. Yeah, so that's the take-home message. Thoughts are very, very powerful. We need to be mindful of our thoughts. We need to learn to recognize our thoughts, to identify the thoughts. When we pay attention to our thoughts, we need to recognize with wisdom that thoughts can appear in different forms. This is very, very important. Okay, I repeat, thoughts can appear in different forms. This is very important because we often can't identify the thoughts that fit our emotions. Yeah, earlier I mentioned thoughts are very powerful. Thoughts can condition our feelings. Therefore, we need to be mindful of our thoughts. We need to be aware of thoughts. But the problem is many of us, we are not aware of thoughts. We cannot identify our thoughts. We cannot notice our thoughts. And the reason is because thoughts can manifest in different forms. So I'm explaining to you, I'm using the word thoughts for teaching purpose, for demonstration purpose. But in real life, actually thoughts can manifest in different forms. Okay, thoughts can be in a form of belief, perceptions, interpretation, expectation, assumption, mental image, meaning, and so on and so forth. Okay, let me explain to you further. Okay, imagine in this situation, imagine a situation whereby you send a WhatsApp message to a good friend. Okay, I'm sure most of you are WhatsApp users. Suppose you're sending a WhatsApp message to a good friend, and imagine there's no response from your good friend after 1 hour. Okay, and you notice the 2 blue ticks on the WhatsApp message. Okay, and suppose in this situation you feel frustrated. Got a scenario? So you send a WhatsApp message to a good friend, no reply, no response in 1 hour, and then you see the 2 blue ticks. You feel frustrated. You know you're frustrated. Okay, and in this situation, you have to ask you, what are your thoughts? You have to ask you, what are your thoughts? Okay, some of you might be aware of your thoughts. You know the thoughts. Okay, but some of you don't. Okay, in fact, many people don't. Many people are only aware of their emotion. So they'll say, yeah, I feel frustrated, I feel upset, I feel angry. If you ask me what are my thoughts, some people cannot recognize the thoughts. Okay, that's quite normal. Okay, but if I were to ask you, in this situation, when you feel frustrated, what are your assumptions? What are your perception? What is the expectation? What does the two things mean to you? Then if I ask you in this way, then maybe you're clearer of thoughts. Okay, and you may say, I feel very frustrated. The reason I feel frustrated is because my best friend doesn't respond to me in 1 hour. Maybe your expectation is if you send a message to your best friend should respond to you immediately. So maybe that's a thought which manifests in the form of expectation. So you expect to get a response as soon as possible. Okay, or maybe you're having the thoughts. Maybe you understand this WhatsApp tick system. For those of you who are not aware, in the WhatsApp system, one gray tick means the message has one tick because it hasn't been received yet. So if it's a one tick gray in color, that means the other person has not received the message. If it's a two ticks gray color, that means the person has received but has not read the message yet. Okay, then if it's two ticks blue in color, it means the person has received and actually read the message. But actually two blue ticks, what it really means is, it means that I have clicked on the message. When I click on the message, doesn't necessarily mean I read the message. Again, you may feel frustrated. You may thinking, this fellow who reads my message, two blue ticks already. How come you read already but still never respond back to me? So you might be thinking in this way. So this is a very good example to illustrate to us. Sometimes thoughts are sometimes more complex. It can manifest in the form of perception, in the form of meaning, messages, and so on and so forth. So this is a good example. So if you are caught in this kind of situation, it's good to ask yourself, so behind the emotions you're feeling, whether it's fear or frustration or anger or upset, ask, what are my expectations? What does it mean to me? So what do I hope? What do I want? What are my needs? What are my assumptions? What images go through my mind when there is no response? So these are the various ways for us to explore our thoughts, to identify our thoughts, to know our thoughts better. Since it's important to be aware of thoughts, I have one suggestion for all of you to be more mindful of your thoughts. I suggest all of you keep a thought diary. Keep a thought diary. So in the thought diary, so what do we write in the thought diary? We can use this mind mirror format. Remember in MINDFULGym, I think in lesson 1 or lesson 2, we actually went through this. We call it a mind mirror. So we divide the mind into 4 parts: mind the thoughts, mind the feelings, mind the body sensations, and mind the behavior. So we can keep a diary, and we can, whenever we are triggered by a situation, for example, in the earlier example, you send a message and then you get frustrated, you can start to write, make entry into a thought diary, document the thoughts, document the feelings, document the body sensations, and document the behavior. And bear in mind that thoughts can be very complex. Thoughts sometimes can be in the form of belief, in the form of perception, in the form of interpretation, in the form of expectation, assumption, mental image, or meaning. Okay, so once we are able to identify our thoughts, capture our thoughts, recognize our thoughts, then we are in the better position. We are more ready to learn how to manage the thoughts. Okay, so now I assume you have been keeping your thought diary. Assume you are very good in your mindfulness practice. You can recognize your thoughts. Okay, once you have recognized your thoughts, then I have 5 suggestions here. I have 5 suggestions here on how you can relate to your thoughts, how you can manage your thoughts mindfully. Okay. The first method is go back to basic. Okay. Go back to basic means practice the mindful body stretching, mindful breathing, breathing meditation, do the HTC, the EFT tapping, the butterfly hug, all the things that we learned in MindFulGym Part 1. Practice all those exercises, all those tools to relax the body and calm the mind. It's very, very important to relax the body and calm the mind when we want to manage our thoughts mindfully. Okay, this is very important because very often our thoughts is conditioned by the body. Thoughts are conditioned by body. Our thoughts are interconnected with our body sensation. So I notice when I have a negative thought, sometimes I don't have to do much to overcome the negative thought. All I need to do is do mindful body stretching, do mindful breathing, do a little EFT tapping, do a bit of butterfly hug, and sing the Rasa Sayang song. And then naturally, those negative thoughts, unhelpful thoughts, they will just subside. I don't want to do any other thing. So it is a very skillful way to deal with our negative thought. Focus on the body, relax the body, calm the mind. Negative thoughts will just automatically disappear. Okay, so that is the first method. Okay, second method is instead of worrying excessively or getting angry, try to live in the present moment. For example, practice the mindful photography or keep yourself busy with something meaningful. Okay, so in other words, learn to live in the present moment. Okay, I give you an example. This is a kisah benar, real life example that happened to my mom yesterday. So my mom yesterday, she went for her COVID vaccination, exact at the PWTC. So I accompanied her to have a vaccination. But in the morning before she went over, she actually received a message from one of our relatives. And the message is a very, very negative message, you know. In the message, the relative tells my mom, don't go for the AZ vaccine. You go for it, a lot of complications, you get blood clot, you may die. And the relative say that, she saw don't know what message, I don't know, a professor from where, and expert, say never ever go for AZ vaccine. Sure will get blood clot, will die. Lots of complication. So that is not very, very helpful, you know, because to begin with, my mom already has anxiety. My mom has severe anxiety. So it's so difficult for my sister and I to convince her to go for the COVID vaccine. And now you get this kind of message. Okay? So what was my feeling at that time? Of course, there's a mixed feeling, a little bit of frustration, a little bit of worry about whether my mom will cancel the appointment. Okay. So how I apply the mindfulness in this setting? Of course, I do my mindful breathing, I do my body stretching, I do my EFT tapping, I do my butterfly hug, relax the body, calm the mind. Okay. After that, I remind myself to live in the present moment. That I did is to prepare the slides, prepare for this presentation. That is something meaningful. So that helps to occupy myself, help to engage my mind, doing something meaningful. So with that, with my anxiety, frustration, they naturally will go to the background. They no longer affect me. So very simple method, keep ourselves busy in the present moment. Of course, you can learn, you can practice mindful photography as well. That is what we learned in the last session. So when you take mindful photos, I see some of you, many of you send very nice pictures in the MindfulGym Telegram group. So when we focus on the pictures around us, that also helps us to focus our attention in the present moment. Okay, so naturally, the negative thoughts will be in the background. We can also remind ourselves, we can ask ourselves, what can I do now? Again, back to the example for my mom. I cannot stop my relative from saying negative things to my mom. I've lived long enough to realize that very often in life, we cannot stop what other people are doing. I can't stop the person, but what can I do is later after I calm down, okay, after I calm down and relax, I actually ask a friend, okay, I ask a good friend whose father has gone for the vaccine. His father is also the senior citizen who has gone for the vaccine. I asked my good friend to call my mom and share all the good experience that she went through with her father, who is also a senior citizen who have a good experience with the vaccine. Yeah, so I focus on what I can do instead of worrying excessively and getting frustrated. Yeah, so that's the second method on how to relate to our thoughts mindfully. Okay, so in total there are 5 methods. Okay, let's go through the third method. Okay, so the third method is a very interesting method. So I call this method unhooking thoughts. Unhooking thoughts, okay, in psychology is called cognitive diffusion. That is the technical psychology term, cognitive diffusion. But for a simple term, layman, everyday usage, I prefer to use the word unhooking thoughts. Okay, unhooking thoughts is a wise way to pay attention and watch our thought so that it won't be carried away, pushed around, or caught up by unhelpful thoughts. Yeah, since thoughts is something that we cannot see. So in this presentation, I will use this ping pong ball. You see the ping pong ball? I will use this ping pong ball to represent our thoughts. Okay, so it's the thoughts of, example, the thoughts of I'm not good enough, thoughts of people don't like me, thoughts of COVID vaccine, dialogue, thoughts of it's all my fault. So all these are negative thoughts. So in unhooking thought, we learn to watch the thoughts. We learn to watch the thoughts so that we don't get carried away by the thoughts. Yeah. So it's important to understand. It's important that in unhooking thoughts, we don't try to get rid of the thoughts. The objective of the exercise is not to get rid of the thoughts. All we are trying to do is learn to emotionally distance from the thoughts. Emotionally distance from the thoughts. So instead of feeling the thoughts this way, as though it's stuck to us, we learn to emotionally distance from the thoughts. So that's what I mean by unhooking thoughts. Unhook from thoughts. The thoughts are still there, but it doesn't feel like this way. It doesn't feel like it's so near to us. It doesn't feel that we're stuck to it. We emotionally distance the thoughts. The thoughts are still there, but it doesn't influence us so much. We are not sucked into it. So that is the meaning of unhooking thoughts. Okay. So how do we do that? Don't worry if you do not know how to do it. So conceptually, that's what it means. Unhook from the thoughts. How we do that? Okay, good. Okay, there are a few ways we can unhook from our thoughts. Okay, the first method is called notice the thoughts. Notice the thoughts with kindness. Okay, so how do we do that? Okay, again, I'm using the ping pong ball. Suppose the ping pong ball represents, again, our thoughts. Thoughts of, for example, nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. So when we notice the thoughts with kindness, this is what we do. So we imagine the ping pong ball is our thoughts. And we say to ourselves, I'm having the thoughts. I'm having the thoughts of nobody likes me. Okay? Or we say to ourselves, I notice I'm having the thoughts that nobody likes me. I notice I'm having the thoughts or nobody likes me. Okay? Or I use the phrase, there's a part of me which is having the thought that nobody likes me. Okay? If you look at all the phrases, they are designed in such a way to help us to able to emotionally distance from our thoughts. Okay, a part of me is having the thoughts. I notice I'm having the thoughts. I'm having the thought that nobody likes me. Okay, so in doing in this way, help us to have a distance from the thoughts. Have a distance from the thoughts. Of course, this works better after we have done the basic practice. So this thought diffusion and hooking thought, we need to practice together with the mindful breathing, the mindful body stretching, and mindful breathing. Then only we can have the ability to distance from thoughts. So the first part is noticing it. Notice. Notice with kindness. So in a way, if we can watch the thought from a distance, in a way, it's a form of kindness. Because if we watch the thought in this way, and the thought is stuck to us, it's very, very painful. If we can watch the thought from a distance, there's only a part of me which thinks in this way. Carry this thought. So we're not sucked to the thoughts. That is less painful. And in a way, it's a form of self-kindness. That's how we can be kind to ourselves. That's the first way of unhooking thoughts. The second way of unhooking thought is, I call it name it. Okay, name the thoughts with a beginner's mind. Name the thought with a beginner's mind. Okay, let's say the thought, the anxiety thought of, oh, COVID vaccine die. COVID vaccine die. Okay, we can give a funny name. We give a funny name in the spirit of beginner's mind. We can give a name to, we call it that thought as anti-amygdala. Anti-amygdala. If you still remember in MINDFULGym, one of the earlier sessions, I talked about amygdala. Amygdala is a part of the brain which is responsible for anxiety and anger. So whenever the thoughts of anxiety thoughts of dialogue, we can tell ourselves, remind ourselves, anti-amygdala is here, anti-amygdala is here, anti-amygdala is here. So that helps us to be aware of the anxiety thought. So when we're aware, we are not carried away by it so much. If you're having a depressive like thought, let's say you have a thought of NG. NG stands for not good enough. So a lot of people with depression and low self-esteem, people with low self-esteem tend to think that, oh, I'm not good enough. Not good enough. So we can name the thought as NGE virus, not the COVID virus, the NGE virus. NGE stands for not good enough. So whenever you notice the thoughts, label it, call it, name it, not good enough virus. So repeatedly naming it helps us to emotionally distance from the thoughts. A lot of people with anger issues, they have these thought patterns which is related to should. Everything is a should. The government should be like this. My mother should be like that. My children should be like this. The COVID vaccine should be like that. I should get this vaccine. I should not get this one. Everything should. This should pattern of thinking drives anger, drives frustration. So whenever you notice this should thinking, so you can give it a funny name in the spirit of beginner's mind. You can call it the should goes. The should goes. Why I call it should think? Because each time we think in this way, I should get this. I should not be like that. You should not treat me like that. In a way, we are shooting ourselves. We are shooting ourselves. We are hurting ourselves. We are harming ourselves emotionally. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. For those of you who don't catch it yet, it's okay. Afterwards, during the Q&A, please feel free to ask more questions so that you understand what I'm trying to say. So far, I have described two ways of unhooking thought. First one, notice the thought with kindness. Second one, name the thought with beginner's mind. Okay, let's see how else can we unhook our thoughts. Okay, we have the third method to unhook our thoughts. Unhook our thoughts, unhook our thoughts. Yeah, the third method is normalize the thoughts with wisdom. Normalize the thought wisdom. Basically is reminding ourselves. Mindfulness is remembering, reminding ourselves that our thoughts are impermanent. Our thoughts come and go. So we can visualize our thoughts is like a train. And the train of thoughts, whatever thoughts we have, I'm fat, I'm stupid, sure die, useless, not good enough, whatever, they are impermanent, they come and go. So it's a form of normalizing the thoughts instead of believing that the thoughts stay forever. So this way of understanding our thoughts is reminding us that thoughts are impermanent. Thoughts don't feel the same all the time. thoughts don't feel the same all the time. Sometimes that thought of, for example, people don't like me. Sometimes that thought feels very, very strong. Okay? Sometimes it's the same thought. People don't like me. The thought has not much power. The feeling is only at level 1, not at level 10. So understanding that our thoughts, the feelings associated with thought, the believability of the thoughts actually changes. It comes and goes. So that helps us to not too worried about our thoughts. So we don't give it too much of power, because we know that it comes and goes. It's impermanent. It changes according to causes and conditions. So that's how we unhook our thoughts, by reminding ourselves that thoughts are impermanent. They come and go. There are also the several metaphors. I call them metaphors. There are several metaphors which are very helpful to help us unhook our negative and unpleasant thoughts. And today I'm going to share with you 6 metaphors. So I compiled 6 metaphors. I find these metaphors very useful to remind us on how to unhook thoughts. Okay. The first metaphor is called thoughts as clouds passing through the sky. So in this metaphor, we try to imagine our thoughts as clouds passing through the sky. Okay? So an example of thoughts is the thoughts of I'm useless. So imagine the thoughts are clouds passing through the sky. And as we are doing the imagination, we remind ourselves that thoughts may not be facts. We allow them to come and go like clouds passing through the sky. So we practice mindful body stretching, mindful breathing to calm the mind. And then we re-examine the thoughts. This helps us to emotionally distance from the thoughts. So when we can emotionally distance from our thoughts, then we can decide whether to believe the thoughts or not to believe the thoughts, and decide to, and can make a decision to decide on how to act wisely on the thoughts. So that is the metaphor of thoughts as clouds passing through the sky. Okay. If you don't like this, you have another one. The second metaphor is the metaphor of thoughts as birds passing through the sky. Okay? Okay? Suppose you're having the thought, oh, COVID vaccine, die or end up with complication. Okay? So you imagine these thoughts are like birds passing through the sky. Imagine the thoughts as birds passing through the sky. So this imagination, this visualization, this metaphor help us to emotionally distance from our thoughts. So that our thoughts doesn't feel like this. The thoughts feel like this, emotionally distance. Okay. And we practice same thing: mindful body stretching, mindful breathing, butterfly hug, EFT tapping. Relax the body, calm the mind, and then we re-examine the thoughts. Once our body relaxed, mind is calm, we can distance from our thought. Then we re-examine the thoughts. Then we can decide to act on the thought wisely, whether to believe the thoughts or not to believe the thoughts. So that's thoughts as birds passing through the sky. Okay, so you notice when we relax the body, calm the mind, then emotionally distance from the thoughts. The thoughts are still there, but it's not so strong. The thoughts are still there, it's not so strong. When our mind is clear, body relaxed, the thoughts have less power to influence us. The next metaphor is the metaphor of thoughts as leaves on a stream. So in this metaphor, instead of imagining the thoughts are like clouds or birds passing through the sky, we imagine our thoughts are like leaves flowing on the stream. So same thing, you can do the mindful breathing, you can do the body stretching, you can do the EFT tapping, do the butterfly hug, and at the same time, imagine the thoughts are leaves flowing in front of us. Okay, so that also helps us to emotionally distance ourselves from our thoughts. Why do we need to emotionally distance from our thoughts? It's so that we can have a better perspective of the thoughts, so that we can decide whether to believe on the thoughts or not to believe the thoughts, and it helps us to make wise decisions and wise action as well. The next metaphor, this is one of my favorite. Okay, this is a metaphor of thoughts as passenger on the bus. So you can imagine you're driving. So you imagine you're driving, you are the bus driver. Okay, and you imagine all the negative thoughts, all the unhelpful thoughts. They are like the passengers. Let's say you're driving the bus. You are the thoughts are all the passengers behind you. So all the passengers behind you, they are making noise. They're saying all sorts of negative things, unhelpful things. So saying all sorts of things. Okay, and what do we do? Okay, of course, in this metaphor, this metaphor is helping us to again emotionally distance ourselves from the drivers, which are thought. So we remind ourselves to focus on the driving process, focus on driving, do the mindful breathing, do the body stretching, do the EFT tapping, all those things, so that we are emotionally stable, so that we don't let all the thoughts catch us. We don't let the thoughts disturb us. Okay. But sometimes the thoughts are very tricky, you know. They will come forward and try to trick us. The thoughts will come forward. The passenger will come forward to talk to us, to disturb us. So we have to learn to be strong emotionally. Do mindful breathing, qigong, body stretching, EFT tapping, so that we can focus on our driving, focus on our purpose in life, focus on our objective in life, and not to be bothered by the thoughts. We don't have to get rid of the thoughts. We don't have to get rid of the passenger. No need. All we need to do is don't pay attention to them. Don't pay attention to them and just move on. Yeah. Okay. This is another interesting metaphor. This is called the metaphor of thoughts as chess pieces. So for those of you who play chess, you know, in the chess set, there are the chess board and the chess pieces. Okay, let me ask you an interesting question, a Zen question, a reflective question. Are you the chess pieces or are you the chess board? Something for you to contemplate. Are you the chess pieces or are you the chess board? Are you the board or are you the chess pieces? Okay. In unhooking thoughts, in the practice of unhooking thoughts, we relate to the thoughts, we relate to our thoughts as the chess pieces. So this one represents different thoughts, different thoughts, different thoughts, different thoughts, different thoughts. We got all sorts of thoughts. Okay, but we remind ourselves we are not the thoughts. This is very, very important. This is wisdom. This is understanding. We are not the thoughts. We are not the chess pieces. We are the chessboard. We are the chessboard. Yeah. So we are not the thoughts. Yeah. So remind us in this way helps again us to emotionally distance from a thought. So we are not the thought. Yeah, we can be free from our thoughts. So I also like this metaphor as well. In fact, I keep this in my clinic to remind myself and also remind my patients that we are not our thoughts. We are the chessboard. We are bigger and greater than our thoughts. Okay, one more last metaphor. Okay, the last metaphor is the metaphor of thoughts as cars passing. Metaphor of cars passing. This one is useful for those who are driving. When we are driving, very often when we are driving, we see cars passing. Cars passing. Okay. So the way I practice is when I'm driving, I see cars passing by me. I'll remind myself, those cars, the cars are like our thoughts. Okay. So let's say we are driving and then we see a car here. The car passes by, and I remind myself, this car is like one of my thoughts. So the cars are like our thoughts. So the thoughts again come and go. Thoughts come and go. Thoughts come and go. So again, with this way, we are not so carried away by our thoughts. So those are the various similes that you can use. Various metaphor similes you can use to help you to unhook from thoughts. Okay, so I have covered three methods on how to relate our thoughts mindfully. The first one is the basic one: do mindful body stretching, mindful breathing, relax the body, calm the mind. Then the negative thoughts will automatically disappear. Second one, instead of worrying, instead of getting upset, live in the present moment, keep ourselves busy, focus on what we can do, whatever we can't do, just leave it. Second method. The third one, which I just elaborated extensively, is learning how to unhook from negative thoughts, how to emotionally distance ourselves from the thoughts. Okay. The fourth method is see if we can explore the thoughts, whatever thoughts. For example, thoughts of is my fault. Okay. Explore the thoughts, relate to the thought with the attitude of kindness, a beginner's mind, and wisdom. Okay. Exactly what does that mean in real life? Okay. Example will be whatever thoughts we have. For example, thoughts that is my fault. Try to get a second opinion and discuss with someone whom you trust. Get a good friend, talk to a good friend, someone you can trust. So very likely, very often and very likely in the process of talking to somebody, in sharing and talking with somebody, we realize that our thoughts are distorted. We realize that sometimes our thoughts of is my fault. Actually, we are too harsh on ourselves. We are not kind enough to ourselves. We are beating ourselves too much. There's lack of kindness. Very often when we talk to others, we see things with a beginner's mind. We see things from a different perspective. So when we have the thoughts here and we look at the thoughts ourselves, okay, it might be distorted. If we look at a thought and talk to our friends about the thought, and we learn to see the thoughts in different perspective. We learn to see the thoughts in different perspective, and that's a beginner's mind. Then in the process of doing that, you realize it's not really our fault. Okay? And that leads to wisdom. Wisdom, understanding, realizing it's not really our fault. Things happen with causes and conditions. There are many, many, many factors. Okay? So the fourth method is exploring thought with kindness, beginning's mind, and wisdom. Exactly the mindfulness definition in MINDFULGym. Okay, one last slide. Okay. So the last method on how to deal with our thoughts. Okay, it's important to remember our aim. You'll probably notice that in all my explanation, our aim is not to get rid of unhelpful thoughts. Our role, our training is not to get rid of unhelpful thought. Okay. Because in psychology, there is this law which says that whatever we resist will persist. Whatever we resist will persist. There's a thing called the pink elephant experiment. So in psychology, there's an experiment called the pink elephant experiment. Basically, in this experiment, when the scientists ask people to look at the pink elephant, and then they tell people not to think about the pink elephant. And they tell people not to think of the pink elephant. Actually, people think about the pink elephant more. Yeah. So this experiment shows that whatever we resist will persist. And it's very true. Very often when we have a lot of negative thoughts, the more we beat ourselves, the more we are harsh to ourselves, the more we say don't think like that, the more we beat ourselves up for thinking that way, actually the thoughts will multiply and get even more and more negative and more powerful. Yeah. Okay. So in mindfulness training, we learn to relate to the thought. We don't get rid of the thought. We learn to relate to the thought in a different way. How do we relate? So we remind ourselves to relate to the thought. Relate to the thought in a way is paying attention. So I'm linking this with all the mindfulness definition in MINDFULGym. So our role is not, our training is not to get rid of thoughts. Okay? In mindfulness training, in dealing with thought, we are reminding ourselves. So we are reminding ourselves to relate to the thoughts. Really, in a way, relating the thought is like paying attention to the thought. Okay, relate the thought in a way, relate to the thought with kindness, beginner's mind, and wisdom. Okay, so that's how we can be mindful of our thoughts and learn to relate our thought with kindness, beginner's mind, and wisdom. Okay, so with that, I will end my presentation. We're open for Q&A. Yeah.
First question, am I right to say that chessboard is our mind and the chess pieces are our thoughts?
Correct? Yes, correct. So the chessboard is our mind and the chess pieces are our thoughts. So in a way, our mind is bigger than our thoughts. Our mind is bigger than the thoughts. Yeah, so our mind can be aware of our thoughts. So the chessboard can be aware of the chess pieces. Our mind can be aware of our thoughts. If the mind can be aware of the thoughts, that means the mind is bigger than the thoughts, is beyond the thoughts. The mind can be free from the thoughts. The mind doesn't have to be a slave to the thoughts and be carried away by thought. Yes, very good.
Thanks, Dr. Pang. The next question.
Chess pieces our thought. Yeah, correct.
The next question is, what if we know the thoughts are not true logically, but still can't help to believe it? Just don't pay attention to it. We are not the thoughts.
Correct. So if the thoughts are not logic, and we know it's not logic, but we still cannot stop it, then we have to use the pink elephant experiment. I remember in the pink elephant experiment, the more we try to get rid of the thoughts, the more sticky the thoughts become. So we don't want to think about pink colored elephant, the more we'll think about pink colored elephant. Exactly true in our situation. You know it's not logic, you don't want to think about it, but the mind is going to think more. So if we don't think more about it, what do? So we need to learn skillful ways. Okay. For example, we can do mindful body stretching, we can do mindful breathing, we can do EFT tapping, we can do butterfly hug. So sometimes when body is relaxed, mind is calmer, the thoughts automatically won't stick so much. Of course, keep yourself busy, like what I say now, keep yourself busy, prepare slides for Zoom session, go for exercise, shift our attention. Shift our attention. It's not just don't pay attention, shift our attention to something else. So that's how thoughts behave, you know. So we need to have the wisdom, the understanding on how thoughts behave. So if we do not know how thoughts behave, then susah. We try to carry our thoughts. They actually bring their friends, you know, they bring their kawan-kawan. More thoughts will come after us. You bring the pink color elephant, will bring a lot of small father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, brother, sisters, pink color elephant after us. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Pang. The next question is, I noticed I was having the thought of I'm hopeless in mindfulness practice due to excessive thoughts. The true send hope out ghost is here, like this.
Yes. So in fact, the person who is asking this question used the phrase, I notice I'm having the thoughts. Okay, I notice I'm having the thoughts of I'm hopeless in mindfulness practice. So that is part of the unhooking. The fact that you can use the phrase I notice instead of I'm the thought itself. I notice I'm having the thought, that itself is noticing it. Of course, the naming it is the you call it the shoe ghost. The ghost is makes sense. Shoe, I wonder why called shoe. Actually, it doesn't matter lah. Most importantly is you yourself know it's meaningful. You yourself find it funny. You yourself find it easy to remember. That's good enough. Okay. For example, I give you an example. I have one patient. She has a very skillful way of naming her negative thoughts. Okay. So she used, I taught her use ping pong, and she's Chinese speaking, you know. So whenever she noticed a negative thought, she will say something like that. But this is in Chinese. In Chinese, she will say, my mind choi ping pong again. This is ping pong ball. She will say, my mind choi ping pong again. My mind choi ping pong. In Cantonese, the phrase choi ping pong has a meaning of, my mind is talking nonsense again. So the mind is talking nonsense again. So the mind is choi ping pong again. So this again, something very, very skillful, very creative ways of unhooking thoughts. So that's correct. Continue that.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Pang. The next question is, Dr. Pang, please explain the difference between behavior and feeling.
Behavior and
feeling.
Behavior is what we do. Feeling is a feeling of fear, feeling of sadness, feeling of frustration. Right? Of course, the feeling affects behavior. Behavior also affects feeling. Okay, for example, I feel lazy. Let's say I feel lazy. I feel not motivated. I feel lazy. So there's a feeling. You cannot see my feeling. I feel lazy. Okay. Then my behavior is I just sit at home. I sleep all the time. I don't go out. I don't meet people. I don't talk to people. So the behavior you can see. So I sleep around. I lazy around. I don't talk. I don't meet people. That's a behavior you can see with your own eyes. Feeling you can't see. Feeling inside me. I feel lazy. I feel tired. I feel not motivated. Okay.
Okay. The last question is, I notice when I have unwanted thoughts, the immediate reaction is dislike or negativity. How to encourage myself to be more kind or have more kindfulness? Thank you.
Good question. Again, congratulations to the person who asked this question. The fact that you asked this question, that means you are able to notice the unwanted thought. So that is a good start. You are mindful, you're able to identify, you're able to notice the unwanted thought, which is very good. But in the second phase is how to relate to the thought with kindness. Maybe you need a little bit more coaching on that. Okay, my suggestion, suppose this represents your unwanted thought. I suggest you put down the unwanted thought, put it down for a while. Put it down, put down a while. Okay. Then put down a while. Then go to basic. You do some mindful breathing. You do some body stretching. Okay. You can do some EFT tapping, butterfly heart. Those things that we learned in part 1. Okay. Then go back to the thoughts again and sing the Rasa Sayang song. Imagine last time we learned the Rasa Sayang song. Rasa sayang, hey, rasa sayang, sayang, hey, hey, may you, may all be happy, happy, happy. We learned this song while we were doing the butterfly hug. Remember in MINDFULGym part 1? Hug. Yeah. Okay. So while doing the butterfly hug practice, we sing the Rasa Sayang song, but in this context, we are singing the song to the thoughts. We sing the song to the thoughts. In other words, we are radiating kindness to the thoughts. Okay. Then go do something else. Shift your attention, go and do something meaningful. Okay. After some time, come back to the thoughts again. Okay. After some time, revisit the thoughts and see whether the thoughts feel differently. See whether your relationship, your feeling towards the thoughts, whether it changes or it doesn't change. So this is my suggestion for your practice. Yeah.
Okay, one more question about how do you ignore the noises, example, nagging, conversations in the surrounding, etc. That's the only thing you are hearing while trying to do your job.
Good question. My suggestion, go back to the basic, practice mindful body stretching, practice mindful breathing, and the breathing meditation. The reason we feel very sensitive to all this noise because our body is not relaxed, our mind is not calm. Because our body and our mind condition our perception of noise. It conditions our perception of noise. For example, when I have enough sleep, when I'm well rested, I find that noise don't have the power to disturb me. But when I don't sleep well, when I'm not well rested, I become very sensitive to the noise. So again, this is a good example to show us the problem is not with the noise. The noise is still the same. The noise is the situation. The noise is still the same. Okay, but our state of mind will determine whether the noise is noisy or whether the noise is not noisy. If our body is relaxed, our mind is calm, then the noise is not noisy. But our body is tired, our mind is restless, the noise becomes noisy. Got it? How you got it? Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Tang.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Very good question. Yeah. That shows that you are seriously practicing and thinking.
When doing mindfulness meditation, I always have the problem of those things that happen before coming to my mind. Example, the mind is busy in remember things.
Yeah, that is very normal. The mind is engaged in thinking. That is very normal. That's why you remember in our mindfulness meditation last week. I'm not sure whether the person asking the question joined us or not. Okay. Before the breathing meditation, we actually spend quite a lot of time doing the mindful body stretching and mindful breathing. And I purposely designed it to be that way. Because if we straight away go into the breathing meditation, usually the thoughts are all over the places. So I strongly suggest start with mindful body stretching, with the Qigong breathing, stretching, breathing, stretching, breathing, stretching, breathing. When the body is relaxed, the mind is calm, then only go into the breathing meditation. In that way, in my experience, then the thoughts are easier to manage. The thoughts are still there. But it's easier for us to unhook the thoughts. That means while we are sitting in the cross-legged, easier to unhook in the sense that we can leave the thoughts at the background. Yeah, not in the foreground. But if we don't do the preparatory work, we don't do the mindful body stretching, we don't do the mindful breathing, the thoughts they feel is right in front of us, everywhere. Okay, so still go back to the basic: mindful body stretching, mindful breathing, EFT tapping, kindful hand, butterfly hug. Then only go into meditation.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Pang. One more question. When I am stressed, I realize that my neck and head muscle will be tense. I try breathing, but sometimes doesn't work. Is there anything else I can do?
Good. You can try mindful body stretching first. Because mindful breathing is more for calming the mind. Mindful body stretching is more for relaxing the body. So your issue is more of body ache, neck ache. So a better practice will be mindful body stretching. So you can practice only mindful body stretching, or you can practice mindful body stretching alternate with mindful breathing. Stretching, breathing, stretching, breathing, stretching, breathing. Yeah, I think that will be better. And of course, if you still remember the stretching and breathing, there are two ways to combine. One is simultaneous. Simultaneous means together, the stretching and breathing together. And one more is sequential. Sequential means stretching, then breathing, then back to stretching, then back to breathing. I think that will work very well for you. Give it a try.
Thanks, Dr. Pang. One more question here. When I am not perform good, this thought that I am not good enough, should have done better. Those thoughts keep lingering, make me feel anxious and fear.
Yeah. First of all, you are not alone in having the kind of thoughts. I've been practicing mindfulness, MINDFULGym for many, many, many years. I still have that kind of thoughts. Jasmine, do you have that kind of thoughts?
I just had it last night.
Just had it last night. I also had it yesterday. Okay. As I said, I brought my mom for the COVID vaccination. On and off, I have the thoughts of whether I have done the best for my mom. So it's a similar thought pattern. Am I good enough? So I have learned. I'm grateful that I have the wisdom now to realize that there is no way for us to get rid of the thoughts. I realize that. I hope you also realize it. I hope you learn. There is no way we can get rid of the thoughts. Okay, but we can learn not to be hooked by the thoughts. The thoughts is going to come back on and off depending on situation, depending on causes and condition. No matter how long you practice, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, the thoughts are still going to be there. The thoughts are like visitors. They will come on and off depending on situation. Okay. So when we practice mindfulness, it doesn't mean that we don't have the thoughts. When we practice mindfulness, it means we are able to recognize the thoughts and emotionally distance from the thoughts, not affected by the thoughts, and move on with your life doing whatever we are supposed to do. Okay, like for example, yesterday my mission was to bring my mom for the COVID vaccination. Despite all the challenges, despite all the obstacles, that was my main mission. So I had the thoughts, but I was mindful of the thoughts. I was able to practice mindful body stretching, mindful breathing, all the exercises I shared with you. I can emotionally distance from the thoughts. The thoughts were still there. I know they're going to come back again, but I'm not influenced by the thought. I can still do whatever I can to care for my mom and to give the best I can to my mom. Yeah, I hope I answered this question. Yeah.
Okay, one more question, Dr. Pang. What about those highly practiced Buddhist masters with developed mind? Do they have thoughts?
Okay, this is I'm answering this from a Buddhist perspective. So I need to switch my gear a bit now, because generally the MINDFULGym program is a circular program. The person asking this question very likely is a Buddhist. So I'll answer from a Buddhist point of view. Okay. In very advanced Buddhist meditation, okay, at the level of the jhanas, I'm only answering this question. So other people, if you do not know what jhanas is, fine. But I suppose the person asking this question probably know about jhanas. Okay. Jhanas are very high level of meditative absorption. It's called jhanas. So in Buddhist teaching, there is jhana level 1, jhana level 2, jhana level 3, jhana level 4. Basically, they are very, very, very deep level of relaxation and calmness. Much, much deeper than whatever we are practicing. So we are practicing mindful body stretching, mindful breathing. It's already very relaxing and very calming. Jhana is like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times of that. So from a Buddhist perspective, when a person is in a jhana state, deep meditative absorption, it's possible to have no thoughts at all. In fact, that is the characteristic of jhana. In the jhana state, there are no thoughts. But that requires special training. MINDFULGym is designed to help you to relax and calm, but not to the level of jhanas. So we can't help you to get rid of our thoughts. We can only help you to be mindful of thoughts, to distance from a thought and relate to the thought with kindness, beginners, power, and wisdom. If your aim is to have no thoughts at all, then by all means, please go and learn from experienced meditation teachers, Buddhist meditation teachers.